Business ownership has never been hotter, but how do you do it? That's where I come in. Allow me to guide you on your journey. Welcome to Ion Franchise. This episode sponsored by SEO Samba. Empower your franchise with predictable results and AI-driven marketing.
Up next.
I thought we had a deal. We were gonna do breaking news on the show.
It was interesting because I think, franchising finds you. But was our first franchisee called us up out of the blue one day and said, "Thank you so much for franchising your business. I have the life that I've always wanted."
Culture eats strategy for breakfast. That's obviously one of your mantras or favorite mottos. What else? Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another fabulous episode of Ion Franchising, and I'm your host, Lance Graulich. Today, I have my friend with me that runs a company called Evive Brands. They have quite a few brands. We're going to talk about them, give you all the reasons that you should be looking at these brands for your next venture. So welcome to the show, CEO of Evive Brands, Mr. Ryan Parsons.
Thanks so much for having me.
Ryan, is awesome that you are here. You're a fellow New Yorker like I used to be. So, New York, Yankees didn't win, but that's okay. Brooklyn Dodgers did win.
That's true.
The old Brooklyn Dodgers. My dad was a huge fan. All right. So, Ryan, how'd you get into franchising? That's one of my favorite first questions because most people don't go to college or get out of high school, whatever, thinking, I'm going to work at a franchise group or own one or whatever it might be.
Yeah, it was interesting because I think, franchising finds you. And so make a long story short, my brother and I had a gutter company and we did a lot on our branding and our systems and all that stuff. And we had clients continually ask us if we were a franchise, and we weren't. It was because we were uniform, we showed up on time, it was predictable. It felt like it was bigger than it was, and it was funny. I used to get made fun of like, "Ryan, you act like you have a Fortune 500 company. There's like 3 of you." But that's how I always ran the business. And so that was enough for my brother to say, we should franchise. And there's a lot more to the story than that. But
yeah, well, share with everybody what the business was or is.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I got started a little too fast. So before being the CEO of Evive Brands, my brother and I started the Brothers That Just Do Gutters. And so that started as a one location, my brother in a truck doing all the work. I joined him and we kept building it up and eventually franchised that and grew it to, well over 100 franchisees and like 400 territories. But franchising, that one-up gutter company, that deposit from our from our clients was enough for us to say, let's do it. And here's the crazy thing. My brother, he's like a visionary. If it was up to him, we would have franchised that next day. And if it was up to me, I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. I don't think we still would have franchised because I would have found a reason that we weren't quite ready. So with his tenacity, my integrator thinking.
Your good looks.
Well, definitely. That was it. You're right. That's all it was.
That helps.
We ended up, franchising it. It took us like 7 years from the time we thought about doing it. We just continued to hone our system and say, you know what? The technology's not right. The branding's not quite on. How are we going to support people?
So you suffered a little bit from that perfectionism, right?
I did. And my brother, his mantra, not mine, is done is better than perfect.
Yes.
And I hate it, but he's not wrong. But I still like to make it as good as it can be.
So what really got you to franchise? Because, some of the audience, besides people looking at business ownership and franchises, some of the audience are independent business owners and they want to hear success stories on franchising because they might one day follow in your footsteps and take their independent brand across the country through franchising. So what really tipped the scales for you and your brother, like when you said, hey, we're going to franchise this thing?
So for us, we didn't know anything about franchising. I didn't know the whole world and all the different things. What tipped us to it was we built something that we could duplicate, and this could be our retirement. It was really sort of selfish at the time. It's like, well, if we could teach other people how to do it, we knew they paid royalty. And then as we age out and we saw, how our competitors, most people never get off of a gutter truck and they can't even sell their business. if we could grow a business, teach other people how to do it, that would be a win-win for everybody.
Yes.
We get some royalty, and then, that's our retirement. We weren't very savvy. I didn't have a 401k. We didn't know how to do all of that stuff, but we did know this business. So it did start out pretty simple. And I'll say the most rewarding thing, though, yes, money's great and all that stuff, but was our first franchisee, not our first one, but it was, few in, called us up out of the blue one day and said, I'm standing at the end of my driveway. I'm looking at my house that I've always wanted, my family, my truck with the logo on it. Thank you so much for franchising your business. I have the life that I've always wanted. And that, it gives me chills to this day. And that was
I love that.
I had no idea how fulfilling that part would be. And
myself as a franchise broker, we always say that what we do is life-changing. We talk to people most often that are first-time business owners, leaving a job that they don't like, doesn't pay them enough money, and doesn't give them the freedom to do the things that they really want. And business ownership can give you that when you find the right brand. So Brothers Gutters is a big deal now. You guys are a big deal. You've done well. And where do the other brands come in? With Evive, that is.
Yeah, so Evive was already a platform before Brothers, and they had 3 senior care brands. We've got Executive Home Care, which is non-medical in-home care, Assisted Living Locators, which places people, into some sort of a home, and then we've got Grasons Estate Sales and Business Liquidation. So those are kind of that senior platform, but the whole goal was to eventually add service brands so that we're providing, from the time someone buys a home to the time they're called home, we're going to have somebody that can help them throughout their entire journey. So it's been really exciting to, one, have the Brothers part of that platform, and 2, for me to oversee the entire platform as the CEO. And we're ready to acquire some other brands, which is really cool. Can't talk about that yet, but very, very.
Wait. I thought we had a deal. We were gonna do breaking news on the show. No, after the show?
Maybe on the final thoughts, but yes, after the show, when the recording's off, we will do that.
Love it. Got it. So let's get back to when you first set up for franchising. I'm sure you had some surprises. So what were some of those surprises? Now you're set up for franchising. You're responsible now for the success of other people. What are maybe some of the funny things or just in general surprises that occurred?
So the biggest surprise was we were so focused on trying to franchise our business and getting that FDD that once we had it...
And that's the franchise disclosure document for those playing with your bingo card at home.
Yes, franchise disclosure document. Actually, when we started thoughting about franchising, it was called the UFOC, the UFOC.
Oh,
that's how long it took us to franchise. Actually, changed the name.
I remember the UFOC, which is Universal Franchise Offering Circular.
That's true. And so once we had it, we're like, this is awesome. And they were like, holy crap, how do you sell a franchise? I know how to build a business. I don't know where to go find people that want to buy it. And so we joined these consultant networks, broker networks, IFPG, all this stuff, met great people like you. And here's the second surprise. They were like patting us on the head like little kids, like, hey, that's really great. I love your business model. And maybe someday when you have about 10 or 20, I might even risk my reputation on showing one, is kind of what it felt like.
Well, and that is the truth. If you don't have enough, what brokers think is enough proof of concept, but I tell people all the time, if you have a couple of territories open in different cities, but if you're brand new, now tell me, when you launched your franchise platform, did you have just a couple of corporate territories open?
One corporate territory and 2 pilot programs. So we did have, in 2010, proof of concept. We opened one in Virginia, one in New Jersey. Both are brother-in-laws, crazy enough to take a shot on us. And they broke half our systems that I thought were awesome. I was like, oh, crap, I guess we should answer the phone for them. We need to, go to cloud-based solutions rather than, building a server. So it happened at an awkward time. There was no cloud. There was no voice over IP. It wasn't or these API integrations. This was happening and technology was moving along, but it wasn't there. So it was really great that we got to practice on them, and I'll tell them that and I'll thank them to forever. And it wasn't ready. In 2010, it wasn't ready. And by 2014, it was.
Yeah, and I tell all of my clients, I said, look, there's some great young brands, but because they're young, they haven't battle tested all of their systems and procedures and their call center or sales center, whatever it might be. So there's an advantage of getting in early. You might get a better deal. You might get bigger territory, some kind of first in favors, so to speak, when you're within the first couple of franchisees, but you're not getting into McDonald's. That isn't going to change anything.
Absolutely. Yeah, your territory fee, everything. Yes, they got in at the best time, but was it the best time for them? No. I mean, they learned with us. They took their lumps and we learned together, and it was great. Ultimately, it all worked out. They're still in the system, and we're still get along great. So all is good.
You and I also had a little conversation before I hit record that isn't it shocking that some of the big brands out there today still don't have their systems and procedures in order?
So that was my second or third big surprise, is that I went to, I think it was IFA, and I'm sitting at a round table with
International Franchise Association, by the way.
That's what is
on
that?
The bingo card.
I-10. So, and I'm sitting with brands I've heard of. And I'm like, and again, I felt like a little kid. I'm like, I didn't, we're brand new to this. We went from being really cool as far as a local business to small fish in a huge pond. And I'm sitting there and they're talking about their technology and how they've got still some of their franchisees on ledgers, that they can't get them to get to the CRM. And I thought we were so cool. And now I realize, hey, once you have size, it is really hard to get some of those legacy people. So, and even that their support wasn't built out, that they weren't having it was all top line. They're like, oh, our franchisees do $1 million. I'm like, all right, well, how much are they making? I don't know. It's it wasn't really as thought out as we took so much time to think of everything because I interviewed a ton of people that own franchises that I knew. And I said, what's good, what's bad? And they said, for a lot of them, it was, they bought a system. And then it was once they had it, it was all right, here's the manual, good luck. And so they were they had resentment. Here's the thing that I realized. Most franchisees started to resent the royalty around 2 years in. Yes. And our goal was to never have them resent it. That they're thank you for being the best partner we've ever had. I could never do what you do for me for 6% or whatever it is. Yeah. So that is something that we held true, and I still hold true to this day. I never want someone to resent that royalty or go, what do I need you for? I want them to want to do that. So that was surprising that some mature systems, were having, things like that.
All brands are certainly not created equal. As a broker and a guy that's owned franchises, that's what I protect my clientele from. And I want them to get into a great franchise, be happy and successful so they can tell 10 people about me. And I do have clients exactly like that tell tons of people about me because they're happy and successful. Speaking of which, let's talk about some money. So Brothers Gutters, you've been around a while. Mm-hmm. What kind of money can you make? I mean, what are you creating millionaire franchisees printing money over there?
Not quite millionaire franchisees. I mean, it depends on how much they save each year, but it's really good. It depends. So the average franchisee, I wrote some notes down. This is everybody in the system that's been open for at least one full year that's in the FDD is doing over $1 million, 1.17, in top line.
And what's the investment? Share that with everybody, typically.
It's, 150 to 200-ish, depending on how many territories. So it's not a gigantic investment.
Right, and doing $1 million in revenue, the margins have to be pretty good.
Yeah, they're good, but I'll put a caveat. Business begins at $1 million, right? So you don't buy a franchise to have one gutter truck. You have to scale it. But you're looking at adjusted profit of 28% ish, And that's
Nice.
adjusted net, because people run their businesses different. So in a franchise, sometimes there's different models. We have some franchisees, they want to do the sales, they're the admin, they're wearing a lot of hats, so they're not paying people. So what we did, because everyone kind of runs something a little bit different, it's hard to really
Yeah.
get to net profit, and people
Yeah.
can put stuff for their home in there. There's a lot of different things. So
Everybody puts stuff for their home in there. And
yeah,
unfortunately, for those listening, I explain to people like franchising 101 is simply that not every franchisee even knows what their net profit is. There are personal expenses that might by accident get run through the business. And at the end of the day, the only things that are the same are revenue,
yep.
cost of goods, and generally labor, unless you put 10 kids on the payroll that are getting paychecks that don't work in the business.
Yeah, and most of the time, you'll see a lot of item 19s published to gross profit, and it's for that exact reason. It's really hard to see what somebody's really taking in at the end of the day, depending on
Yeah.
what they're doing and how they're doing it. So yeah, franchisees can make a really good living. But I will put that caveat, you want to scale the business. This is not something you want to stay at $250,000 for 4 years. You will not make money in the brothers system at that type of revenue. You need to start to scale it.
So your biggest franchisee has how many trucks?
Oh, like probably 8 if I could. Oh, maybe even more. Let's say 8. I don't want to over exaggerate.
I love it. That's great. That's a big business right there.
Multi franchisees doing over 2-3 million, even one doing over 4. So
That's fabulous. And so talk a little bit about Evive in general when it comes to marketing, support. Is there a general theme amongst all the brands? Do you share staff? Obviously, you're going to have specialists across different brands.
Great question. So we recently centralized marketing across all brands. Brothers had like 7 or 8 marketers, and the other brands had 1 or 2, and we brought them all under the Evive umbrella. And it's been absolutely incredible because some of the smaller brands that don't have a big brand fund, so when you buy a franchise, you're typically putting like 1% or 2% into the brand fund that gets spent nationally on your behalf. But when you have 10 locations, that brand fund, you could barely hire somebody to help, the franchisees market. So what's been really cool is some of the smaller brands are able to leverage that and all the different bigger things that we're doing in the brand fund. So bigger bang for the buck, a preferred vendor network, which has been really cool. So we have a few different people that can do SEO, SEM. It's been really powerful for our franchisees, and even in the bigger systems in our, they've gained so much by centralizing it.
Sounds awesome. Sounds very efficient. When it comes to overall support, you have coaches, franchise business consultants. What do you call them?
FBCs. We used to call them something different, but we decided to call it what everyone else calls it, so that no one's confused. But yeah, each of the brands
FBC is another bingo board. Franchise business consultant, right, Brian?
That's right. That's right. So franchise business consultant, and these are people that really help our franchisees on the day-to-day. Hey, how do I do this in the system? Or I'm stuck here, or am I doing well? What's my ramp compared to my peers? Right?
Yeah.
So it's really cool when you're in a franchise system. They have data from like everybody's launches. So when you launch, we can see, are you above the pack, in the middle? The average person does what, 50 grand their first month, and this and that, whatever it is. We're able to help our franchisees see that. And when they are experiencing issues, we're able to just shine a flashlight and say, what's happening with your labor? It's supposed to be 23%. You're at 38. Well, I'm paying people too much. Okay, let's talk about that.
Yeah. No, I love that. Sharing best practices and that collaboration is part of that unknown that some people don't even realize you get as a bonus from being in a franchise system. There's great ideas, and that's pretty amazing. Let's talk really about
cool because you can look at it by percentages. A lot of things are done by percentage. How much should my labor be? How much should my building be? My advertising, And it's really helpful that you're not guessing as much as you would be if you just started something on your own.
Yeah. When I was at Wingstop, it was as simple as sharing P&Ls, and if a Wingstop did 20,000 a week, and your store did 20,000 a week, and their labor hours were 300 labor hours, forget about the hourly rate. How many labor hours does it take to get the job done? And we used to compare labor hours. We used to compare schedules, and it was an amazing mastermind, essentially. And sometimes people would fly in to come see me, and I said, you got to see my staff. They're all cross-trained. They're doing more than one job, more than one task. So this is a business, this isn't a hobby.
And you might have been making a lot more profits than somebody else with the same revenue. And that's where, a lot of people, the franchisees hold so many levers. You decide what you pay somebody. You decide if you're a good leader. You decide, all the different things inside of a franchise model. There are best practices, but it's up to the franchisee to utilize them. And then I love the sharing. I love when franchisees share. That is
sharing is caring. So let's talk about some of the other brands. Give us some highlights on Executive Home Care. Start with that one. So that's in-home senior care mostly, right?
Yeah. So it's an awesome model. This is really helping people stay in their home longer, right? So they're having issues. They can't really do everything by themselves. And they get somebody in their home for anywhere between 2 hours a day. And some, places it's overnight, helping them fold laundry, do the things, remind them to take their pills, all that stuff. So people can continue to have quality of life. Great business model. This one is one that really scales, and there could be a lot of profit in that.
And it's a very low investment. I mean, you could do millions a year in a home care brand.
Yeah, we have one that's doing, $6 million across a couple territories, $3.6 million in one territory, and their gross margins are like 43%.
Yeah. This is one of the most profitable niches of franchising, and executive home care. One of the things I love about it, and I know Jessica and David with executive home care, and lots of territory still available, which is amazing, with a great leadership team.
Absolutely.
Yeah, love it. Assisted Living Locators. Assisted Living Locators. My friend Angela founded that brand a few years ago, right? She founded it?
Absolutely.
I'm winking here. And so describe that. It's not traditional in-home care.
No.
It's sourcing for people, assisted living facilities, etc.
This is such a cool business model because there's really not a heck of a lot of overhead in the beginning. And you're getting leads, and then you're just trying to find the best home for this person based on, there might be 50 assisted living facilities in your territory. And then they're finding out, do they have memory care issues? Can they walk right? Do they need help with this? And they're placing them in the absolute best place for them for what they need. Yeah. And then they get a commission from the place they place it. So it's really cool. It's a very cool business model. You don't have to do millions of dollars to make a lot of money in that one. You could do $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year, and there's barely any overhead. So it's a really cool business model that you don't need you don't need infrastructure, you don't need a building. I really like that model a lot.
Yeah, no, it's a great model. Talk about Grasons now as well.
So Grasons is really cool. Again, it's right in that senior space where an estate liquidation, this is something that happens, and they're typically not happy events. Somebody dies, the kids got to figure out what to do with all the stuff in the house. And they go in there and they stage everything. They know the pricing for everything. They bundle things together so that family can maximize everything that's in that estate, so that they can the Grasons gets a portion of that. Again, very low overhead outside of marketing, royalties, and the staff that you need on that site. But what's really cool is in their scope, it's paid for in the estate sale. Like they take care of that. So a very cool business model that can scale, where you can do 2, 3, 4 estate sales a weekend. You could build teams and make this a really big business, or you can keep it a little bit smaller, and most of your stuff is happening on the weekend. So for some people, this is perfect for their lifestyle, their part-time job, and doing this and building something. So again, and they do business liquidation as well, which is a really, really a great source of revenue.
Yeah, I mean, I could see the synchronicity between assisted living locators, executive home care, and Grasons. I mean, you have kind of the trifecta of getting older and all the options that anybody needs on one under one roof, so to speak. Even though it's different franchisees, I would imagine over time you are going to have franchisees that end up taking on more than one of those brands. I mean, before you know it, they might own two of those brands, right?
Yeah, that's my goal. Because one thing in franchising and anything in life, I don't want anyone to hit a ceiling. So sometimes people only buy one territory. They're like, hey, listen, let me see if I can buy something in the future. Let me get this going. But then someone buys the ones around them and they can get landlocked. I hate that. But if you've already built a successful business and you've maximized it, how awesome that if you're an EHC, then you buy an ALL and a Grasons, and now you've got all of this under your roof, and you can continue to increase your opportunity for the people that work for you, your income, and everything else. So yes, that is definitely a goal.
I love it. No, that's fantastic. Talk a little bit about your franchise selection process. There's thousands of franchises. Who are you looking for in general? I mean, certainly a cultural fit. You're not just going to hand a franchise or grant a franchise to anyone just because they have money. There are people that think that. I had a guy that was rather obnoxious not that long ago. He's like, well, I'll make a decision whether I want to join this brand or not. And I said, I'm sorry. That is not how franchising works with the best brands. This is a two-way street. It's like dating. Are you going to force somebody to marry you? Well, it doesn't really work like that, at least legally in the United States. So tell me about your process.
Yeah, so it's very similar that we're making sure it's a good fit because this is a long-term relationship, and that territory check that gets spent, that's gone. But the wrong candidate, which it could just be the wrong candidate for us. They might be successful somewhere else. But man, it is painful to have somebody that's in your system that this isn't right for them, that they're either not right, they're not hungry, they're whatever it is. Yeah. And so, yes, back when I was more involved in approving franchisees, we had about a 15% rejection rate after confirmation day. Confirmation day is 029 on the bingo card. So that's when you get to go and view, like you think you're about 95% sure I'm going to purchase this opportunity, and you go and you meet everybody, and we had about a 10 to 15% rejection rate from there, which was not fun for the brokers. That's never a fun conversation to call up the consultant and say, yeah, this guy you think is awesome. We said no,
So how many different members of your team speak to prospective franchisees until they even hit confirmation day? Like
typically
two or three people?
Yeah. 2 to 3 people are in that process. They get to validate with franchisees. They have an opportunity to meet a lot of people along the way, but one person is typically guiding them through it till that confirmation day.
Talk a little bit about validation right there, and then I want to expound on that confirmation day a little bit. But validation, for those playing at home, also on the bingo card, validation is that wonderful process. It's my favorite part of the process where you get to speak to real-life franchisees about their experience. And every brand seems to do it a little differently. Some brands do group calls, and other brands hand you a list of all the franchisees and say, call whoever you want. I'll never forget, at Wingstop, I called whoever I wanted, and I spoke to a couple of franchisees back-to-back that hated it, hated everything. And then I finally called Wingstop Corporate, and I said, called my contact there, and I said, those people suck. They hate you. They hate life. They hate everything. Could you give me the names of people that are successful and happy? Because I'm smart enough to know that those people know why those other people are not happy, and I'll determine at that point if this makes sense for me, at least at that point. And they said, wonderful, Lance, and they did that. So it was a good experience for me after that.
Love it. So, when it comes to validation, what I love about validation is a franchisee can say anything they want. They can tell you how much they make, how much the labor is, what they like, what they don't like about the franchisor.
Would they do it over again?
Would they do it over again? When you're talking with the franchisor or the consultant, they can only say what's in the FDD. So if you say, how much money can I make? They can go, well, if you look at item 19, it says that the average franchisee had X percent profit or 43%. So this is your opportunity to ask all the hard questions. And it's not that they're dancing around it at the franchisor level. We really don't want to misrepresent the opportunity. So my personal favorite is once the brand gets a little bit bigger, because when you have a small brand, you burn out the franchisees real fast by giving them all the numbers. So if you have 10 franchisees and they're getting calls, then they don't get back to people because they're actually running the business. It could actually really be a bad process. Yes. So I am a big fan of selecting 3 to 5 validators, and they go once a week. They hop on a Zoom call, and as many people that are in the pipeline that are interested, hop on, hit them with any questions they want. And I really love that, but I also do like that. But at the same time, these are the 5 that we've chosen because, we've got one that's brand new. We've got one that's been doing it forever. One that's a husband-wife team, so that you can kind of hopefully
variety
that mirrors what you're trying to do, but also at the same time. But if you really just want to go, call any of them. But these are the ones that have signed up and that are willing to tell you anything that you want. Yeah,
got it. So Confirmation Day, where do you do that? It's in-person Confirmation Day?
It depends on the brand. For some, it's in person, and for some, it's Zoom. COVID kind of. You had to do everything by Zoom for a hot minute. And I think a lot of people are like, this is kind of cool. We can do this. People don't have to fly. I still love breaking bread. If you've got a great office and you've got you can see the culture, because we talked about that earlier, culture fit, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So when you're building a company, you want to have culture. That matters. And you can't show culture through a Zoom like you can in person, but you can get close.
Yeah. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. That's obviously one of your mantras or favorite mottos. What else?
All right. I got a couple favorite mantras.
Let me hear.
So I love this one because this epitomizes who I am and who I want our franchises and everything to be. Always provide more in value than you receive in cash. I love that. You always provide more in value than you receive in cash. So whether you're an employee, whether you're a franchisee, I absolutely love that, live by that. And anything I'm part of, whether it's church, I'll volunteer, I'll set up chairs. I always try and provide more in value than I'm receiving. It doesn't always have to be cash.
Yeah. It goes back to the under promise and over deliver.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good.
So
what else?
So I'm a big believer in you have to be replaceable to be promotable. And a lot of people hold on to their skill set. Like, I'm the only one that knows how to do this. You can never replace me. And then when there's an opportunity for a promotion, they raise their hand like, yeah, right. Yep. Who else is going to do your job?
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer, especially when you're building a franchise. If you're your best salesman, then great. You'll never get past that part of your business. You have to train somebody. You have to be replaceable so that you can take the next opportunity to keep growing your company, growing yourself.
I love that. Yeah. So why does franchising work so well? There are people out there, as you're aware, that I had a guy the other day, you just do franchises? Yeah, I don't want a franchise. Well, why not? Well, because there's fees. I can do it on my own. Oh, you can you? Based on your experience, I don't know how you're going to run a business on your own. There's too much risk, but that's okay. I'm here whenever you're ready. And you should explore. So what is your thought process to that? Why does franchising work so well?
Well, for most of it, you're getting a proven blueprint. Like when you start a business, you got to come up with a name, a logo. You got to figure out SEO. You got to literally do everything. And what I love about franchising, so I look at it 2 ways. If I was to start a business and I wanted a partner, and the partner said, I'll do all your logos, I'll do everything, and I want 10%, they'd say, heck yeah, I'll pay you all that. Typically on a franchise, it's like you're getting the world's best partner for somewhere around 10% plus or minus. right, that has the brand all figured out. They have the operations, the systems. Every day people partner with someone, they give them 50%, only to find out this isn't even equal. I'm doing all the work. You're not doing it. So when I think about it, it's like, my goodness, like somebody's teaching you how to, like in the gutter business, the average gutter guy that's just an owner operator does about 250 grand a year.
Yes.
You know, our average franchisee, does over $1 million. So you're automatically, by being part of it, you're getting a head start.
Ryan, that example is perfect. It should be on all your materials and your websites, because that's what I deal with all day. I spoke to a guy that owned an independent air conditioning company, and he did $850,000 in revenue in his 8th year. And he was very proud. And he goes, why would I use a franchise? And I said, well, because my favorite air conditioning franchise, you would have done $800,000 the first year minimum, and you would have paid 6% royalty. Is that not worth it to you? And there was silence on the other end of the phone.
It's true. And it takes time, and and I get it. But yeah, it's a head start. And a lot of people that buy a franchise, they're not young like I was when I started. We had a long runway. I wasn't married. I was living in my parents' attic. I mean, I had tons of runway to not make money and make mistakes. Yeah. A lot of people are risking a lot more. They're typically a little bit older. They've had a career. To start something from scratch it's freaking hard. It is hard.
Absolutely. Well, you have dropped some amazing information and knowledge, and I love that. Final thoughts, tips, words of wisdom for the audience.
If you're thinking about buying a franchise, the biggest thing that you can do is a inner look and a gut check. So many people are thinking, well, what can you do for me? What do you do for me? And at the end of the day, most franchisees that fail, it's actually their own leadership. It really comes down to it. So I would be devouring leadership books, devouring podcasts and things that talk about how to be a better leader, how to interview better, how to manage. That is I think the biggest surprise for people. They've got this great blueprint. It worked for 80% of the people in the system. And you might be sitting there at Wingstop going, this thing sucks. Meanwhile, someone else like, this is the best thing that ever happened to me. So really, it really comes down to you and your leadership. Nobody can do it for you. As soon as you sign and you get away from corporate and you open up, it's now your culture and your business and your leadership.
So Ryan, what's your favorite business book that you recommend for somebody to read?
Shoot, it all depends on what they're going through, but the biggest impact for me was when we were first thinking about franchising and I read the E-Myth. It made everything make sense. I knew all the systems I was trying to build. I knew why I was trying to build it. It's not people that fail, it's systems that fail. That book really, really impacted me. I've read hundreds since, which I can remember maybe this much of each one. But that's what we become. We can become this little version of everything we've read.
The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. Ryan, you have been amazing. Thank you for being here, and look forward to shaking your hand in person someday.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
If you're ready to talk about franchise opportunities, hit the link below to schedule a call. My services are free, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for listening.